Oh my god. How does this work? Hi, Steve. How you doing? Miles thought that his device was not the blocker for the podcast account, and it definitely was. So we couldn't do anything. All right. Now we're now I'm doing a double infinity mirror. There we go. All right. Cool. So, how are you guys doing?
Good. Work for the day.
Artem has mood lighting in Panda. Oh, good. Okay. Well, we've never done this sort of thing before. I don't know if it would be worth it to share like links to people. Where's the bloody thing? I'm learning how to do this as we go. So you saw my notes in terms of talking points. That's the only ideas that I have. If you guys have other ideas, I'm very happy to hear them. Just kind of for the sakes of getting whatever the shit happened today documented. So, okay, so this is okay. So the stream's over here, which means I should actually have the stream over Mia. What I'm looking at now, I'm looking here. The notes can be here. Is that fuzz coming from me? I hear fuzz. Is that coming from me? Thanks, Miles. Oh, goodness gracious.
Cool. It's like Star Trek.
With the fuzz, you mean, or just in what sense?
Yeah. The fuzz, the noise.
I hear it a little bit.
Someone chopping wood?
Yeah, maybe it's some like radio.
I don't know. I muted my mic and it's still coming through, so I haven't decided to do where it's coming from.
Okay, let's try it.
Steve, what happens if you mute real quick?
Oh.
Huh.
We got radio.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Now I can.
Now I cannot. Yes.
Interesting.
How do we share this with human beings? This is fucking weird. How do people do this for a living?
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Beyond bizarre. Manage. Okay, I don't want to manage this. Is there something like on the channel that pops up? How the hell does this work? Do you guys know? Share. There's a button, and I'm just a dipshit. Okay.
Button.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. Cool. That's why you do this all in advance, so you can just start streaming and not have to worry about this silly shit. Oh, Miles, yes. Miles is, I don't know what's going on with him. He seemed discombobulated today. He thought we were inviting him to watch porn together.
Oh.
I don't necessarily understand why he would have that impression.
It is used.
Okay, gentlemen. Do you have anything to add to the agenda? Or not really?
Not really.
Right. I'm going to try to let Artem talk because he's the one that needs to be talking about all of this garbage. But Steve, also very curious to hear about what you think about a lot of this shit. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. So we can start right from the top. What the hell happened? Because I have theories on what happened, but what do you? Let's do this. Top 3 reasons that Trump won the day today.
Oh,
The other places.
I wasn't sure who was going to start. Well, my first reason is the low turnout. Probably overconfidence in the 2020 numbers, and a lot of people sat home. Yeah, 15 to 20 million is my understanding.
Yeah, same. I'm wondering what the hell happened to everybody. Honestly, is it okay? Artem.
Well, that's difficult to say. Like, it's difficult to say like that he had some. He's basically like he reached his audience better, definitely.
Yes. I think the dead weight of Biden brought everybody down. Honestly, because like, how long did Kamala campaign for? Like 100 days, 107 days.
Yeah, since July.
Yeah, and Trump's been campaigning since 2022, whereas Biden just wouldn't leave it the hell alone and get out of the way so that other people could do it. Because I know that even people like in my family that were not excited about voting were very not thrilled with the way that Kamala just kind of inherited the presidential candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like late in the game, and it was overnight, and it was quiet, and it was like obviously arranged. And so I also kind of find it hard to find good things to say about Biden in general, though, which is why I don't know how much influenced of a point that really is.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the shortened time, primaries, basically didn't go through the normal kind of process. And keep in mind, too, she was not all that popular, like even during the primaries in 2020.
Yes.
She had quit the race pretty early, and Biden made a pledge to, select someone of color, I think a woman of color, as his VP, which certainly helped her, but I never think she had the popularity he had 4 years ago, not even close.
No. And that with the headwind of the incumbency too, because it was a weird point that I was making when I was talking to my girlfriend about this earlier today, is that Steve, for most of our, actually for all of us, for most of our lives, like the first 20 some years, we always had 2-term presidents. We always had Bush. Well, it's slightly older, but the point is we had Clinton through all the 90s, right? And then we had Bush through all the 10s, basically. And then we had Obama for 8 years. And only now with Trump in 2016 are we emerging into this era where no one is popular enough to hold on to the seat continuously, which is bizarre. But also might speak to just like the wasteland that is the current American political climate. It has been for the last 8 years. But no, I definitely think Biden like completely shot the whole campaign in the foot, and there was no amount of like, I don't know why she didn't choose Shapiro as the VP pick either. I get Waltz, kind of, but I understand why Trump picked JD Vance. He picked JD Vance for Ohio, and Ohio obviously went to JD Vance, I think it's the second. Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like the second biggest number of Rust Belt electoral votes after Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Whereas Shapiro was on the table and not selected, and I'm not sure why. If you want a fun fact, they're actually redoing all the ballots in my county in Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Because they found out that they scanned everything into the machine, but the machine did not actually upload the tally counts to the election counter.
Oh.
So like when you look at
Wow.
the county that I'm at, like Center County, it's like super deep red, which doesn't make any sense because there should be it's like a boat shaped county. It should be a little blue dot in the middle of the state. So, but I that stuff, I don't think it's going to be pervasive and far reaching enough. And it's also just kind of infuriating that we have to lose with grace. Whereas, we got to listen to the GOP complain about election fraud for
Right.
years, and then now suddenly everything works. It just works. You know what I mean? That's a phrase that triggers developers, and I love using it.
They'll fix it.
But I actually opened my notes. But we can even get into this as well. I'm curious, Artem, as to what you think about it. I'm still kind of the position that there was no good candidate for Ukraine. Either way, too.
No good. And the main difference, maybe it's a bit early to talk about that, but the main difference in between candidates for Ukraine, not for the states. So states, it's a bigger story. So for Ukraine, we had predictable bad Democrats,
Yes.
say, and unpredictable Republicans.
Yeah.
So this is the which bet is better. So it just matter of time when we touch the ground with the current situation, right? Like after inauguration, maybe after 6 months, or how much time they need to pass all the business to the new government. But for Ukraine, everything is not for Ukraine it's already bad. The war is there.
Yes.
So that's a fact. So it's already and the outcome is not getting better. The war, the situation on the front line with taken land by Russia. So it's getting worse and worse, despite all the help and all the effort that we're grateful for. But still, the situation is not getting better.
Well, do you know anybody, or do you know of any good argument to kind of support the fact that Kamala would have done anything significantly different? Because I can't. She publicly said.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know I don't know who the decision maker in terms of help to Ukraine. Is it Biden? Biden, because he was very adamant about the bombing Serbia in 1995, if I'm not mistaken. That was his famous speech in the parliament. But now is it the same Biden or not? So we don't know that, and we don't know how also COVID affected the results of the current election, and the next situation with the taxes for the next year, in the states also will take its place. So many things will happen, and everything is connected way more than we would like it to be.
Yes.
So we'll see.
Well, okay. Steve, you're unusually quiet.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. That there's kind of the devil we know and the devil we don't. And I do agree with Artem's point that there probably wouldn't be much of a difference in continued aid. So if you take Trump at his word to end the war, I mean, I think we all agree in general, right? War is bad. No one, thinks war is good, or very few people do. But, what does that Artem disagrees.
Hot takes.
But right, the question is at what cost, right? So something would have to change, and it'd probably have to be an escalation in what the U.S. is providing, or more shared resources. I think that would probably be the better outcome. So if Trump's team has a proposal to end the war, would what are Russia's terms going to be? Depending on what they are, I don't think the U.S. would necessarily just accept a total capitulation in Russia at their terms. So, is that Ukraine never joining NATO? Is it, Ukraine has to cede these territories? Well, those are pretty bad outcomes, right? But Ukraine's been able to hold its own for 2.5 years and really stop major advances. So, it takes something more to turn the tide than I think what has been given in terms of military hardware. That's kind of my thought there.
There's for all the security assistance that we gave through 2014 to 2022, and for those watching at home or after the fact, it's mostly training, kind of, in terms of what we gave to Ukraine. So it wasn't so much like we handed them a pile of guns after 2014 and said, go have fun. It was very much us kind of sharing knowledge, sharing intelligence, going over and sharing our understanding of how military infrastructure should work, and teaching things like small unit tactics and whatnot to the Ukrainians that they've employed to great effect against the Russians. But to their credit, they held Kiev, they held Chernihiv, they held all of the 3 fronts they were assaulted on February 24th without any foreign aid. So, that's absolutely worth noting as well. Artem, you raised your hand.
Yeah. So like there is like a big question about like what means like no NATO for Ukraine, because even if something would be like discussed like without Ukraine, let's assume like with Russia, something in some like hypothetical situation. So like Kremlin understands that no NATO for Ukraine would last only by the end of Trump's time as a president. So you cannot you cannot like rely on it for the next like 10-15 years if Russia has to like take Ukraine by force like further. Right? So this probably would not be a good argument from Trump if it could happen ever. But the interesting like phrase that we know about the promise about ending the war. So what is the definition of that? Because definition here is like when we stop something, it's not the end. What is the definition of the end of the war? Okay, Ukraine gets no aid, but it's not the end of the war. Ukraine part of NATO is not also the end of the war.
Yeah,
because we don't know the conditions of that like membership. Like what is the end of the war like could be in Trump's head or in American head.
That's
like what has that like what is the end of the war for Ukrainians? They want a like normal country that as they used to have, which will never happen again. So it's a different country now.
Yes.
So it's a crippled country with destroyed economy at the moment with the Western aid. That's how Ukraine exists. So, but what is the end of the war? And there is no definition for that, because only one like side is interested in that end of the war, and only one person said that he could finish that or end it, or like he could stop.
We circumvent completely the point that Trump and all the rhetoric of like I'll end the war, like we'll negotiate our way out of the war, is so disconnected from the reality of everything that Russia's done for the last 400 years. We'll just not talk about all that right now. That's a conversation for another time. I think Trump honestly believes that he is able to put Putin at a table and have an honest conversation with him. And that Putin is motivated out of, for whatever reason, I don't know if he has something on Trump or if he can leverage the sanctions or whatever brokerage point Trump thinks that he has, whatever fulcrum over Putin in order of putting him at the table. I think Trump honestly believes that that's going to work. By just telling, we'll get the Ukrainians to agree to give up the Donbass and Luhansk and part of Zaporizhzhia and whatever else, and that'll make Putin walk away. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So the Ukrainians never agree to that. Putin would never actually, hold to that. But it is kind of interesting, Artem, to your point, that he put the egg on his face at this, because now it's, especially now, where we have a massively Republican-leaning, corrupt Supreme Court. We have a Republican House, we have a Republican Senate, and we have a Republican president. Super conservative. We got some centrists in there, right? So we got a little bit of less craziness restored. Like the representative from my district in Pennsylvania is a staunch Ukraine supporter, right? He's old line, kind of normal GOP. But it's also Trump. So he can also say like, oh, well, it's Zelensky's fault. He didn't take the deal or he walked away. So like, I'm waiting for him to do one of those kind of fucking things. It's kind of where I'm at with it. Because
Yeah, he likes deals. Like, nice keyword.
he also doesn't have a career of like actually following up on anything he said he's going to do ever.
It's true.
Which is why I don't know why America bought into the rhetoric of it. I was having conversations because I counter protested with Vera, rather I protested when he came to State College, and just very simple questions like he had everything in 2016. He had the exact same student, and if he cared about the border back then, why didn't he do anything about the border when he had literally every single tool? There's nobody that has more power in the world than that position, the president with the House and Senate and the courts. So why didn't he do this shit? Because he doesn't care about it.
What do you think would happen this time with the border?
The border's going to calm down because Russia's going to stop throwing people at it.
Yeah. Well, Biden deported far more people than Trump did.
Yes.
So, arrested people. We're not, to Ben's point, we're not going to see a full implementation of Project 2025, despite the rhetoric. And
God, I hope so.
We don't hear you.
Steve, you're gone. I think your headphones might have died.
I think I cut out there for a second.
You did, but you're back now.
Okay. But anyway, I think certain policies are going to try and be implemented, but not everything. I can't imagine. You're going to have, budget issues, and we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I can't imagine.
So, interestingly, one of the aces that I have in my sleeve in terms of like hope for things not totally going to hell is the nature of the cost recycling for all the Ukraine aid. And I saw an interesting thing on the Twitter. I don't know if this is something that you guys have seen. Steve, you'd probably be in a better position to analyze this.
Oh, yeah.
So if I am streaming, I need to go to here and I need to present the thing that I'm streaming. Yes. And it's this. Which is basically the fact that the United States, unlike Europe, ramped up its military production infrastructure after the Ukrainian war started. Therefore, now that Ukraine is locked into a Lend-Lease agreement, and now that Ukraine is getting mostly military aid, it's not like the Europeans are the ones handing over cash tranches mostly. It's not us. We're giving them stuff that we're making, and we're making them pay for it, and it's very lucrative. So my hope would be that the war hawks that are getting us into Israel and getting us into the Middle East and keeping us there and stuff like that also understand the value of this money-making machine. And that means we cannot let Ukraine lose the war because that money machine goes away if that happens.
That's a good point. Another thing I would mention is that, Trump's admiration of Putin does not translate into a U.S.-Russia style alliance like it does with U.S. and Israel. I think that's important to keep in mind because, the idea of, Trump admiring Putin for being a strong man might be accurate, but that doesn't mean we're going to support Russia by any means in this war in the way that we're supporting Israel. So, I think there's precedent for the aid to continue if you have, you said, Ben, war hawks. And again, I want to make the point that the aid being sent is not our top of the line, equipment. A lot of it had been older equipment sitting in storage. Even the 31 Abram A1 tanks are not as good as the newer Abram A2 tanks or the Abram X in development, right? So, it's hardware that we don't use anymore, that we have battle data from 20 years of Iraq and Afghanistan, but it's just sitting there. So we're not pumping out new, stuff, and it's, never been used right on a boat over there. So, it's not a check either. don't know if everyone always realizes that. So
You look at the states that receive direct industrial investments as a result of us giving stuff to Ukraine, and they're all red. So, except for Virginia, but Virginia was close. Pennsylvania was also close. But do you guys see what do you think Biden's going to do with it? The 90% of the aid that he owes the Ukrainians for the end of his term.
I bet he will do nothing. I bet he will do nothing just to not to make like the Americans angry. So nothing will be forgiven or something
Not even quietly.
like that.
I just want to make sure that you're referring to unrealized gifts from the most recent aid package in terms of hardware that hasn't been donated yet.
No.
Is that right?
Has been promised but not been delivered.
Uh-huh.
Has been allocated for and not been delivered. Yes.
I don't know. I mean, optimistically, I would hope that before, I think, what is it, January 5th, when the new congressional term begins, when it's going to be a lot harder based on how the other, House and Senate races went. It could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and push that through.
So you guys have conflicting opinions, interestingly enough, because I would also I think Biden probably went to bed yesterday at 7:30 p.m. And he's not going to wake up potentially ever again. So I don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith that he's suddenly going to grow a conscience, or he's going to fire Jake Sullivan before the end of the term. I would love to see Jake Sullivan fired. Don't get me wrong; it would make this horrible day better. But I'm just not seeing it. Okay. All right. Where are my questions? Yeah, that is bizarre. The other thing is J.D. Vance worries me too. But then J.D. Vance has also shown himself to, again, his word's kind of useless as well, where he's responsible for kind of reeling in the working class people and the family people. But he also said Trump was Hitler and now he's his VP. So it's like, I do not know. Yeah, okay. Another fun thought experiment here, because we have certain places in the Senate and the House where we see incumbent candidates that were like either straight up lost, right? Like the black Nazi North Carolina dude, he's gone. Thank God. Mitt Romney is off the scene, and he's been replaced by a Republican that is been staunchly pro-Ukraine, which in this day and age is a radical centrist. So on the flip side, we see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene crushing her district. She won her district by a country mile, and she's back again. But she still hates Johnson, and she hates Laura Loomer, and all the MAGA people are still kind of eating each other. So do you think it's going to be kind of a situation where, because I can't see, especially with Johnson, again, they had everything in front of them, but they continually dropped the ball. The Democrats had to bail him out several times. So even despite the fact that Trump has the House and the Senate and the presidency, do we think anything is actually going to come of it? Or are they going to eat each other like continuously? That was a question for you guys.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's so much disagreement within even the Republican Party that it's not going to be like everything they want to do is suddenly getting passed and fast tracked, and there you go. I think that any aid requires Senate approval. Is that right? That's what was kind of a compromise between Biden and the Senate Republicans, who are not a monolith, right? Is that right, Ben? You might know more about that than I do.
That's my understanding.
Like the last,
it's to come from the House and go up to the Senate, but the Senate now has a much better, more clear Republican majority. As the other side too.
I think you're right. That sounds right. So Biden advocated for Ukrainian aid. Trump's not going to take that same position, so it's going to be tougher, but not impossible. That's God.
Oh, we have a viewer. It seems we are either centrist or on the left of the political spectrum. Guys, I think we got a question. Would you call yourself a centrist or a lefty?
Lefty?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, whatever that means anymore, because it means nothing. It's this arbitrary, like dishwater definition of.
Same here.
No, that's far from lefty.
I was gonna say I'm not.
Ask an Ukrainian after being in Soviet Union, after being born in Soviet Union, being on the left side. It's not the
Right.
Besides,
very possible option.
Yeah.
I mean, I was registered Republican for many years. So first time I voted for Mitt Romney. So if this guy's still around, Noah, to your point, I don't think that you're going to find any of us like probably what the Twitter bots would advertise as like dancing around in glitter at like a San Francisco Pride parade. That's not, I think, the three of us. That's what you want to do with your life, go do it. But that's not what I'm going to do with my time. So, yeah, populism and MAGA have. There was a great meme on Twitter where, there was like the middle distance between like a person on the, I guess it's the right, person on the left, and person in the middle, and then the right just like yeeted all the way out to here. But to the point, like that was the other lesson as well, is that Kamala was inaccessible because the Democrats have a bad habit of making people unlikable because of this like moral superiority. And I'm not saying that like you Democrats broadly, but I'm saying like the Democratic National Convention, they choose candidates that kind of talk down to people. This is like the Hillary Clinton deplorables thing, but all over.
Yes.
It's like if you don't subscribe to our specific agenda, you are therefore a bad person. You are therefore politically invalid.
Right.
And that's just the opposite of, like we see that today with the Latino voters. I mean, how many Latino voters swung for Trump? Something like 20%.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's also weird because it shows that Hollywood, their influence doesn't really matter. It's like California. And it's, say what you want. I'm no fan of Donald Trump, but I would have preferred Kamala to win just because I would prefer to the predictable badness of to come with that establishment swamp as opposed to whatever the hell is going to happen now. But no, this is definitely not. This is as I was talking to my dad about it. He put it as he said he blamed Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump for killing the GOP. The Democrats killed themselves. I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Let me see if I'm. Because Steve, you at least have people out in California, so I don't know what the climate is out there.
Well, I mean, it goes by county, but where I'm from on the coast, it's very blue, like 70% or more. So Orange County, oddly, like where Disneyland, Anaheim, is pretty Republican for some reason, so it's kind of known. But no, I think there was no doubt that the election was going to go for Kamala in California, being from there, obviously, too, making a huge difference. But you wouldn't. I mean, that portrayal is probably pretty accurate. Like what you hear about in entertainment, that it's pretty liberal. Now you go inland more toward Nevada and Arizona, which are red. It gets pretty red pretty quickly, but that's not the majority of the population. So
I've seen Trump still got 40% of the vote. I'm just looking at the Google thing now. Trump still got 40% of the vote in California, and Kamala got 40%, 40, and Kamala got almost 43% of the vote in Texas.
Wow,
to me was insane. Which if those I don't know, growing up, those were always just guaranteed. Like all the jokes about the fate of the world being decided by 17 people in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan were relevant just because of the nature of that straight down the middle split. Like Texas will always be red, Cali will always be blue, New York always be blue. Even New York, Kamala Harris only got 55% of the vote.
Wow.
Like Trump got up to 44.
Gee.
I'm trying to think of other Georgia, she barely lost. I'm trying to think of other like red strongholds. Steve, you can help me.
North Carolina?
Oh, North Carolina.
That was kind of a swing state.
North Carolina was also extremely close. Trump
Wow.
had 51.1%. Kamala had 47.7%.
I've heard anecdotally that Oklahoma is the most red state in the country. I don't know what the metric there is, but I've heard that.
66-32.
That's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. It's also only 1 million
Double.
total votes, though.
Oh, well.
No one came out in Oklahoma. Maybe there's just not a lot of people. But I'm trying to. I mean, Alabama. I thought Alabama is also.
Oh, sure.
They're in the Bible Belt, but yeah. See, like, no, this is the point where like, and I don't know the trends of all these other specific states, but it's the game is fundamentally changed at this point, and I have no idea. Here's because like what candidate is either party going to come up with in 2028? You know what I mean?
Well, my guess would be J.D. Vance will run. That seems like a natural kind of, if he is a sycophant and kind of does Trump's fitting, then, I could see them propping him up.
If he still has Trump's approval 4 years from now. Which
is a good point.
If he will not be blamed for Trump's failures.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
You could have, because I also said the same thing about Pence, especially after watching the debates back in the day. Because he actually, for all of his kind of loopiness, he's a presentable individual at least. He says, was it true that he can't stand in a room alone with a woman, or is that just like a rumor? That was always one thing.
That before, yeah, his wife isn't there.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that the fallout only happened at the very end when the certification was happening. So it's possible that it could be in Trump's kind of good graces for those 4 years, having learned, kind of how it went wrong with Pence, that he's kind of the next person they promote. But there'll be a primary, I'm sure. Democrats, who knows, right? I don't think we'll see Harris again.
No.
Or there's probably no one who ran in the last couple times. Bloomberg, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren.
Sanders will be dead.
Cannot imagine.
Warren will be dead. Jill Stein will probably be dead.
Well, she's not even a Democrat, but you're right. I agree. She'll have to be new people.
John Kerry.
John Kerry. Al Gore.
God willing, bring him back. We need to recount Florida. Yeah. No, I appreciate the advice. This is completely impromptu, and we've never done this before. So, this is like a very early stage operation, and I imagine it's specifically my mic that's garbage, because I know that Artem has a good one. I know that Steve's got a decent one too. So apologies.
No, I don't.
Oh, I forgot yours is dead. But to Noah's point, I also don't have the matching white doors here. So hey, we appreciate that. We're doing our best we can with what we got right now. It's not but we can have by the way, Artem and Steven, I was thinking of how to have a conversation about this offline. I'm going to put a note down for myself. Thank you, Noah, for reminding me of that. I've just been distracted by the latest, getting everything done and moved back into home. All right. But yeah, it's like at this point, I would never feel, I guess let me put it this way, even if I were like a diehard Trump fan in the capacity, not like in like making that the central keystone of my political career. So by that I mean you're one of the people now orbiting him, either through MAGA or through the House or the Senate or whatever it is, right? It is still like just holding a can of nitroglycerin that can explode at any time. As soon as because the number that got me almost more than anything else was like 40 out of 44 of his previous cabinet would not endorse him for a second election run, which, say what you want about anything else, that's not a great indicator in terms of like people feeling safe, building up a career and kind of getting something done. because it's just we've seen the revenge campaigns and stuff like that. So JD Vance, very viable candidate. He does have to survive the 4 years though. Politically, I don't think anything bad's gonna happen to him. He might lose his stuff, but yeah, Harris. But I don't think. Well, okay, I say never, but they put Hillary Clinton in the chair again, and she lost 2016. So Harris could be back for 2028. I hope that they would not be so stupid. But yeah. So, oh goodness gracious, what are we doing? Rising tide lifts all boats. I'm very curious also to see how the Warhawks are going to react to the North Korean incursions into Ukraine.
That will take some time for us to see, because there are some already North Koreans in Ukrainian morgues.
Yes,
and they're already they have been there for a month probably already, at least for a month. So they appeared in Ukrainian morgues way earlier than they appeared in news.
Yeah.
So it will take some time for us to see what will happen when they get some experience in the real on the real battlefield, and when they come back to their promised North land. That well, that's not funny for him. That Chuchya religion is very important.
Well, that is if they don't get shot by Russians, because that's happened already. The Russians have mistaken the North Koreans and targeted them. If the North Koreans don't get killed by Ukrainians, which has happened already. If the North Koreans don't flee to Ukraine, which has happened already. Or if the North Koreans don't get caught in pornography addiction, which I've also seen
bring down the internet.
The memes about that because they have access to the internet for the first time in their lives.
And they're like, what? Bring down the internet. So
all right. All right, Noah, here's a question for you then. How do you defuse a war that is started by one side? Because the answer is very easy. Putin needs to pack up and go home or get knocked out of Ukraine. So from us, I think it's a pretty straightforward thing. And also, can you give me an example of one treaty that the Russians have ever participated in good faith?
No.
I can't either. I'm trying to think. Let's do Minsk 1 and 2. Russians did not want to parley with that at all. Budapest Memorandum, absolutely not. Yeah, they violated unilaterally the Budapest Memorandum, 93.
Yeah, but that was the entire point for that.
Yes, but that was
so we Ukraine gave up on nuclear weapons, strategic and then the other one. And Russia has been sending the missiles that Ukraine had given up on back then, literally.
Yeah, but I understand that was a long game, right? Or it was set up in such a way so that the Russians could demilitarize Ukraine and take it back, right? With the advent of whatever next shithead ruler, in this case, it happens to be Putin. But I cannot think of a single example when the Russians have entered into an agreement in good faith. Even going back to Catherine II with the Cossacks, she tore that paper up. Everybody with agreeing with Khmelnytsky way back in the day. Just do not do that. It's not in their interests to do that kind of thing. And because how can you have a negotiation if there's a bad faith party involved? I just don't. I can't buy it.
I mean, maybe the Soviet Union in World War II, but I don't know if you could count that because the Soviet Union's no longer Russia, to fight the Nazis for a while at least.
Yeah, they couldn't even agree with the Nazis. The Moscow-centric Soviet Union, they couldn't even hold their promise to take the rest of Europe with the Nazis.
Right, and that's telling you something.
Yeah, but that wasn't a good faith. That the Soviets were just bought. They just offered more than the alliance with Hitler offered to the Soviets, because the Soviets started the war together with Nazis.
That's true.
Yes. And then
They just got bought. That's it.
but that's like that's why, you know, the situation is thus, and there's we can get into this briefly too, because there's a big concern that I hear having come back to the States, and people are like, we don't want American boots on the ground, we don't want young men and women sent over to die in Ukraine. Get that argument. It's a very valid argument. I also don't want Americans dying in Ukraine. The flip side to this is that people don't differentiate Ukraine from all the Middle East bullshit that has been going on literally our entire lives, right? Gulf War, Iraq 1, Iraq 2, Afghanistan, Iraq again, and everything else that's been going on. Those are intractable, unwinnable conflicts. I have no idea why we were there. The weapons of mass destruction thing was a lie. We should not have been there in a lot of cases. And even if you want to have a larger argument for like wiping out Al Qaeda or things like that, the legacy is like $8-9 trillion bill. Osama bin Laden's dead. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are dead. Massive discord in the Middle East. ISIS, all this other nasty shit, and now the Taliban rule Afghanistan. This is a zero-win game for anybody that's not in Islam and is a Muslim theocrat, right?
Yeah.
Ukraine is a very different situation with a well-defined national identity. They've done nothing but defend themselves for 500 years from hostile invasion. They're still here, and here's the kicker: they will fight and die without anybody else's help, so long as we let them do it.
Right. That's a good point.
So why not let them do it?
Well, yeah, I agree. I think more should be done, right? Few people disagree with that. So then there's the idea of soldiers. What I've heard is kind of, you know, the bottleneck right now is that they could run out of eligible, you know, personnel to send to the front line, because that's one thing they're not getting and haven't gotten from any other country, as far as I know, outside of kind of volunteer soldiers, which I don't think is a significant number. Although I don't know about that, actually. That's interesting. I wonder how many, you know, foreign, Legionnaire soldiers have gone, but, you know, I don't think they're about to get
insignificant, but
insignificant, NATO soldiers. Although France apparently had floated the idea, which is interesting.
Macron floats
things. Yeah. Kind of seems like it. But I think that should be the next step is, you know, sending, I mean, you know, now you have North Korea in there. So would Russia respond with a, you know, nuclear strike if there were NATO troops or European troops? No, I think absolutely not. You know, I think if you were pushed out of Ukraine, out of Crimea, still they're not going to escalate to a nuclear response. So I think there's a timidness, you know, hesitation on politicians in this country and Europe to do that, which is the next logical step, in my opinion.
Artem, you're the Ukrainian. Tell us about Russian machismo.
Yeah, you know, I believe in StarCraft. I believe Russia has not enough of resources to like continue the war they want. And I also believe that Russia will not stop the war at all. They will do like everything in their powers to continue and to cripple the country like further. Also, I believe that if, for example, Americans don't want to send their men to European continent again, so the like roadmap about the aid to Ukraine could have been like thought and planned better than it's now, because now it's just a speculation, like in between two parties. Because if Ukraine fails and Russia gets to the NATO borders closer, so like the United States will send their men to Europe again. It will happen just way later, but they will send it. There is a big chance. There is no like guarantee of a war like on the battlefield again, but Americans will go to Europe way like in way bigger like numbers than they do right now. Not as like instructors. So Russia has not enough of resource for like fight with NATO, any NATO member. Like France can handle Russia on its own.
100%.
I believe like easily, and it's not gonna be like in 1812. So it's gonna be for real.
Yeah. So
because back then half of French army, if I'm not mistaken, just lost on Ukraine territory. So, but it's gonna be Russian territory for sure this time.
Yeah.
And France also cannot allow, if I'm not mistaken, again, to like lose European market or for Russia to trade European market, because France is involved in like agricultural business a lot on the continent. So,
well, to your point, and there is a specific thing that, you know, the whole reason why we do this podcast in general is to contextualize all this garbage so that we can get to the cut to the quick of like how Russia does what it does without having to have read all the history and things like that. Russia does not respond to getting punched in the mouth, generally speaking. So you look at the list of red lines, and this is something that Western media doesn't keep track of, which is hard, right? When you're only seeing the tweets in Russian coming out from Russia Today or straight from the propagandists, and the propagandists are saying stuff like, you know, if Sweden joins NATO, we're going to nuke Ukraine. If Ukraine gets the 155 millimeter shells that we manufacture in Scranton, Pennsylvania, we're going to do some horrible thing, right? You're going to pay for it. You will see blood. We will turn London into a parking lot. So they do all this, right? So like the strongman talk and the machismo that they have is very much just fluff and it's show. It's smoke and mirrors, which I have no idea how the Western politicians are buying into it, unless it's just very much a thing where the Russian spy networks are so deeply inserted that, which it could be the case, right? Tenant media was a thing. You know, Schultz, Berlusconi, however many politicians that just rub shoulders with the Russians. You know, the Germans stuck 2 pipelines right up their own. Anyway, but the point is, there's no penalty for kicking Russia out of Ukraine. Because, and this has always been my very firm belief, is that Russia is built on an oligarchy of corrupt, a very small circle of very corrupt, very selfish, very rich people. None of those people will risk everything that they have built and their money and their companies and their infrastructure for the parking lot wasteland that is now Donetsk. They're not going to do it.
Well,
They're not going to do it. They're not going to launch a nuke against NATO because they know that they would get flattened. There's no reason for them to go bring it to the nuclear level. And then we have, what is it? And what's the nuke? What's the numbers right now? We have at least an order of magnitude more nuclear weapons that we would absolutely respond with if Russia started deploying shit like that.
Well, that's interesting that Russia does what Russia think when most of the wealthiest Russian people don't want to live in Russia. Like they forced back to Russia, but they don't want to live in Russia. So they have like property, like bank accounts, business. They all have it like in the States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, all over the developed countries. And they're forced to go back to Russia for reason they don't understand that for sure. So, and this is really like indeed Russian thing. So I understand when, like, for example, there is this Jewish autonomous region that Russia has somewhere far on the east. When Putin give it to the government who and the government lost like her son in the war in Ukraine. So this is already some sort of, I don't know. I cannot call it reward, but this is a real deal. That's what's going on. So that and I don't understand. I don't understand if it's a start of something when Putin pays to his, let's call them like new minion generation, like new, because they will be all like somehow like attached to the war, because he would like to get some assurance that the war will be going on. Because people that lost something in the war, they would like it to go like as long as possible till they reach their goal.
Well, there has to be a return, right? That everyone's looking to get a slice of the pie. I think you're saying 100% correctly, which is why, Noah, I hope that you're right that Putin would never go to the western border of Ukraine. He would never make it that far. But Very kind. Thank you, sir. We're not here. Hope we're not raining on anybody's parade. We're just here trying to break stuff down. So I appreciate it. But the problem of how did you do that? Am I listening to you in stereo now? God, I just dated.
What happened?
Yeah, there's two of you.
You are here. I'm here now.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened.
Yeah. But getting back to what Artem was saying, and I'll summarize it quickly. We're talking about how the fact that Putin's power structures in Russia are very much propped up on his ability to generate returns for the interested oligarch parties, which is why there's not ever going to be the situation where you have this crazy dude just hitting the red button and nuclear war all over the world. We're burning a nuclear fire, which is what was screamed at me and my partner by very hardcore MAGA supporters. Like, you want us to all die? You want us to burn? Russia's got the strongest military on the planet. I'm like, bro, Russia's got the second strongest military in Russia. Like, let alone in Ukraine. If they had anything close to the ability to actually secure military gains, Kiev would have fallen and it would have been over now. But this was very much intended to be a 3-day operation, what they did with Crimea, and that took years of setup, a lot of bribes, and a lot of corruption in the Ukrainian government, which was purged partially when Yanukovych. What did he do as a strong Ukrainian leader? He bailed out to Moscow immediately.
Can you buy a gold toilet?
Yes. Well, he sent the Berkut police force to go shoot civilians on the Maidan, and then he left and bought himself gold.
Wow.
Well, that's where they're from. It was all the Russian Titushki, which are the same people that they caught. And a lot of, if you see this too, this is an interesting thing. You can start drawing dots. Look for the Russian speakers in the Georgian elections recently.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the Russian speakers in the Moldovan elections recently. Georgia's lead governing party right now is very pro-Russia, and the people hate it. Moldova barely got through, but they're pushing for the EU now. But you see the same symptoms everywhere that Russia touches. You see it in Bosnia. Sergei Girkin, who cut his teeth. And we bombed the shit out of Bosnia, if we recall correctly. The UN dropping bombs in a European country fewer than 30 years ago. Over 30 years ago. I'm old. And it was
Oh,
then.
Yeah. Wasn't that late
29.
90s?
92.
Oh, 92. That one.
Wait, 92.
The bombing
What's
is
92?
1992, wasn't it? It was early
It was like 98.
Are we talking about the Yugoslavia war?
No, Bosnia.
Bosnia.
I thought that was like late 90s. Maybe I'm wrong.
But
I
this
could
was
be
part of
wrong.
Yugoslavia.
Well, the point is,
No.
Okay.
the same guy from the Russian KGB that they sent to go take a bunch of 100 assholes, put a militia uniform on them, declare the People's Republic or whatever the hell it was back then, when the UN was dropping bombs there, is the same guy they sent to Donetsk, Sergei Girkin, to do the exact same thing in 2014, and he did the exact same thing. But now they're jailing. He's jailed, right? As far as I'm aware, they arrested him.
Yeah. He is imprisoned.
Yes. So there is very much a system that is brutal and eats itself and is kind of top down, punishes everything else, which is how at the bottom it's a meat grinder, but the same thing at the very top. Putin has people to answer to, which is why
but this is how the system works. Because system doesn't reward you with the initiative and bravery. System lets you down, and
Yes.
now when you are down, your place is vacant for new heroes.
Yes, that keeps up the military.
And it's indefinite loop.
Yes,
While true, because the place is always vacant.
Well, so long as there are, and to their credit, thank God that they have the system like that, because otherwise Wagner would have been much more effective than it was on the Eastern Front. But it's just here's one for the audience. Here's just kind of an indicative problem. What was the most likely cause of? Well, that's peculiar. Sorry, folks. We'll have to look into this. How did that happen? Give me a moment, please. We're gonna have to adjust some things. That was very bizarre. Mm-hmm. want to revisit. It was 1992. I was right. I was going to say, because it was the year that what? Oh, goodness gracious. I have too many things going on. Someone wants to join the call. Middle. Why did I do that twice? Okay. Hello. Sorry about that. This is very odd. Steve? Okay, see, it was 1992. I was right. What are we thinking of 1998? We're good. It was 1992 for Bosnia. When we were, well, right, we got everybody back. So we're back.
We're back.
Yeah. So anywho, blah, blah, blah. What were we going on about? Oh yes, the fact that the fiefdom system, that the serfdom that the Russians have lived under for 800, like 500, 600 years. Whenever they started, well, it was Muscovy in the 1300s, and then from 1300s.
Yeah, like
when they were Muscovy, and then they only became Russians like 150 years ago. Anyway, so that system just chews people up and doesn't spit them out. So, fun game for the audience. What is the main cause of Stalin? What was the main cause of Stalin's death? Or rather, what was a large contributing factor to Stalin's death?
well, the lack of good healthcare
Brought on by what?
brought by his own fear. So he didn't trust anyone.
And he
So
killed.
Yeah. That's why when he had a stroke or whatever he had, like no one even like dared to enter his like office.
Yeah. Because they killed all of the talent. Rather, Stalin did that, and this is not a thing that was specific to Stalin, by the way. All the Soviet leaders did that all the way up. Especially in the first half of the 20th century, they just murdered.
Well, he just killed all of his pals.
Yes, and then
so because he considered them as a like competitors.
Yes,
even those who ran to, I don't know, like Mexico, at least one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they say the same thing going on today. How many people has Putin killed? Starting with Litvinenko, all the people that reported on him killing his pals. But that was the early 2000s in Russia that the West was also asleep for. That was a separate thing.
Those are only ones we know about.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then we have to get into the Chechnya and like the Dagestan apartment bombings and the bombings where the Russians were killing Russian citizens by the hundreds and then blaming it on the Muslims. But that was a whole separate thing. Okay, I guess we're an hour into this and we can start winding it down a bit. But the final point would be: do we honestly think Europe's going to do anything? I really don't. I really do not. I think Europe they're just the frogs in the pot of hot water. They're ignoring what more could they possibly ignore? Germany assassinate the major head of German industry. It's assassinated people in Great Britain. It's lighting planes on fire in the UK. That was like 3 days ago. Shadow war that Russia's conducting with everybody, including Europe, is very much ongoing. And I don't think the Trump election is going to kick them in the ass because the Europeans they just don't see it. I don't. Maybe it's part of this disinformation spy campaigns, which are very good, as we've talked about several times. But
well, the contributions from Europe have not been insignificant in terms of money and hardware. So if that trend or the current kind of rate continues, I think it's reasonable to expect there are going to be more tanks, more Humvees and things like that. But yeah, I do agree that there will be a void left by the U.S. if Trump follows through on not delivering more aid that that wouldn't really be replaced, and that could be critical. But I don't think they're going to stop giving Ukraine aid based on the election results.
Artem, can I ask you about what's going on right now in the Bundesliga?
I have no idea.
I just
In
saw
Bundesliga in Germany, or you mean just Germany?
Yeah.
Well,
I saw something with
Well-
Schulz's party losing some significant member. Is that of consequence or not?
it's difficult to say. So Germans are now like struggling with their own problem of cheap Russian gas addiction for decades. So the Volkswagen is not doing well, and all of its brands not doing well, and lots of like layoffs. And they I'm not sure that many people understand the real reason for that. So you cannot rely on one source of natural gas, especially when it's Russian natural gas. So what I see, like with probably in Europe, that I don't see that Europe acts as a one instance. So there are different, like multiple different topics, and on those topics, many countries have their own like summits, like events. They plan something, for example, like these northern countries, Scandinavians, like and like Finland, and probably they had the tech summit in Iceland because they are not like very populous countries, and for them, and they are not sure that with Trump, America will come and help. Like at the moment, they need that help. So they're already preparing for some measures as a response to a possible Russian, probably not aggression, but most likely like provocations, because Russia doesn't invade openly NATO countries for obvious reasons. But we see many things that Russia can do and that cannot be defined, treated as other actions of war or aggression.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking even about like something like this Havana syndrome or some things that are not that there are like many small things that Russians do like worldwide. So we'll see.
That we know of.
That would,
Yeah, that we know about. Because what response could be like to Russia right now? Like what measures?
After the bomb that they sent to like Democratic precincts in Georgia and other swing states, we're not going to have one. We're not going to do anything.
No.
Even when it's not.
What will happen? During the Trump time in the White House, the political map of Europe, or like politicians in Europe might change. So Europeans might, especially in Eastern Europe, might elect like more pro-Russian governments. That could happen.
Do you think it'd be more pro-Russian? I feel like it'd be more. If anything, I guess this is one point. Maybe I'd get into this with you. Is that because Trump's always been this pro-isolationist kind of thing? You know, he says America first, and to what extent you have to believe that doesn't really matter. But point being, if the Europeans are going to understand that America is not going to help economically or coming like with all the climate stuff and with all the defense spending stuff, that would hopefully naturally motivate them to look inward and do the thing that like Macron, I think, posted saying that there should be like a strict European defense alliance. That would run completely counteractive to Russian interests, so long as they don't infiltrate and ruin it. But that I guess that could be a ripple effect that I hope would work the other direction.
Well, Macron could. Macron knows how to play the game. Apparently, he's not like hesitant when he needs like new election or something. But those are like France is too big for the continent to decide, and too small for the entire European Union, like to make decisions like that. So some sort of radicalization or pro-Russian like point of views will rise on European continent, especially like in the East.
mm-hmm.
It narrows the scope of the to-do list for the Russian disinformation campaigns. which is not good.
Hmm.
Because America's, the candidate that they bought is now in the White House. We're going to be in the White House on January 5th. That's just how it is. If you want to get into any kind of conversations with me or anybody else regarding which candidate Russia wanted elected, there should be no hesitation that the Russians did everything in their power to get Donald J. Trump into the chair, and they did that by a variety of methods. But there's not a single leftist voice in like the Tenet media scandal. So, but if the Europeans, for whatever reason, can get over that wave of radicalized populism and demagoguery, which I think to a certain extent they're already pushing back against it because, Hungary's lost. Hungary is a silly puppet state. But like the leader of the Czech Republic, even Poland, there was what was it? Was it the UK? Or was it in France? No, it was France had the snap elections. Macron came through, and they had all those videos of like the Speaker of the House that was supposed to shake hands with everybody, and the French wouldn't shake the dude's hand because he's just some, standard super far right, probably anti-Semitic French guy. So, as soon as Schultz gets out of the chair in Germany,
he will go out.
Yeah,
probably the Christian Democrats will take majority of seats again. Hopefully.
I'm not in any way read on this. What do you guys know about the Christian Democrats?
Well, their leader quite pro-Ukrainian right now. Like many Germans, like despite all the variety of opinions that we can anticipate from the German side, they understand what's going on. So it's not about Ukraine; it's about their own security, and they understand that they have not enough of, they're not Switzerland. They don't have enough of mountain around them to be safe and to let Russians die because of their natural obstacles. So they're quite vulnerable for that matter, and probably that's why they understand there is not enough of military force they have. They are not France, and Germans who was let's say destroying the entire Roman Empire, not that many centuries ago, became some soft and weak the country as a military force to that degree that they cannot even afford to raise their voice against Russia when they need it. Well, I believe so, because I don't hear that, because there is no with this Scholz agenda. We always hear that no escalation, no German, not many German weapon for Ukraine, etc. So he's still is very hesitant about what is the Taurus or whatever that missile was.
Taurus tanks, or the Taurus missiles. Sorry. They have
All right, you guys. I have to jump off at 6:30. I have a class, but this has been great. So
we can come.
Yeah,
it's been a good chat. All right.
Yeah, no, sounds good. All right, see you guys.
Take care of yourself.
See you.
All right. Yeah, we can wind it down here as well. Tim, I'll let you get back to your evening. So thanks for chatting. It's always been good.
Thank you.
We'll get stuff out. Ukraine will figure it out. So let's keep head up. Stay in touch. I'll reach out about the thing that I was going to reach out about. But yeah, to everybody else, we actually had 5 to 6 people watching. So thanks everybody for this.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it was a good chat. We'll try to do it a little more often. Have a great night.
Yes.
Safe.
Yeah. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.